All right, here we go. So I'm opening one of the images from the dance workshop, and the first thing I'm going to do is clean up the background. So I always go into having the image fill the window, and then I'm going to use the lasso. What I realized after I made this recording is that I had the lasso set improperly, and so rather than being able to add to it, it was a one time. So as you'll see right now, I went up and I fixed that, and now I can keep adding to the selection. So what I'm doing is selecting those things that I want to remove from the image by using content aware fill. So I've outlined all of those areas, and you can either go to the edit menu and select fill, or hit shift delete on the Mac, and it brings up this window, and I've got content aware set, normal mode, 100% opacity, and color adaptation, and it's going to do its work. And I'm going to turn off the selection now, and as you can see, it's mostly gone. What's still there is the stuff right around her legs. I always start in a separate layer, so I've created an empty layer. I'm going to use the mixer brush, and a brush I have. Use just the standard default brush. I can give you some settings, but the idea here is to just mix the background and that bit of line that's left, so it's pretty much invisible. I'm going to go through and do this right across. On this one, I started on the right side or left side and worked my way across the right. Realized I didn't like that little smudge on the left side, so I'm going to erase what I did and redo it, which is no big deal. So I'm using the mixer brush again. Go over to the other side of her leg. My computer occasionally, or my tablet, does weird stuff. So on the other side of her leg, I'm just going to blend that stuff into the background. I don't care a lot because I'm going to cover this with a texture anyway. So I've now got all of the background removed. I'll merge the layers now because I'm done with that. That's Command E on the Mac, Control E. Next step is to select out the subject. So I've selected the quick selection tool on the toolbar, and I'm just going to go through and select all of Sonia. I'm not going to speed this up. You'll just have to sit there watching me as I select her completely. I did record this earlier. Now I'm doing the voiceover so that I could make sure that I covered everything I wanted to cover. So I've got all of her selected. Some extra stuff got selected. To deselect it, I press the Alt or Option key on the quick selection tool, and that turns it into a quick deselection tool. So as you see here, I'm just using the same tool with the Alt or Option selected. That's removing that stuff. I'll do the same thing on her hand and the space around her head. And now I'm going to select and merge. Select, and mask. And I'm going to go through and just refine some of those areas. I'm using the Refine Edge brush tool. And so I'm just going to go around, highlight her head, highlight that little bit of hair. And again, I don't care if this is perfect because I'm going to lay a texture over it. However, I want to make sure there's no big areas of background gray still there because that would prevent the texture from showing. So I've got it all done. I'll just hit OK. Notice that I've got the output 2 set to new layer with layer mask. That's critical with this. It automatically turns off the layer it started with, so I need to turn that back on because I want that background. I'm using a texture from my library, but you can use the place embedded here quite nicely. I'm going to resize that texture using the free transform tool, Command or Control T. And I'm using Shift because they changed it recently so that if you just drag, it does it symmetrically. So you need to do Shift and drag. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to set the blending mode to soft light, which applies the texture. Now, if you look closely, you'd see that there's still texture on her face. I'm going to turn it into a smart object. Actually, I have it set to do that automatically, where I was just pointing out rasterize would be changed to smart object. I'm going to Command or Control click the mask, but have the focus on the texture layer. And then I'm going to set a Gaussian blur of 250 radius just on her. That's what this is doing. If you look at the layer stack, you'll see that there's now a mask there with the blur below it. And that takes the texture off her. And that's it.